Life is often so busy, taking us here, there, seemingly everywhere. When you aren't able to make it to church, we hope you are fed and nourished by listening to the preaching of God's Word wherever you are at the moment. In the meantime, take care, and God bless.
So when I was a kid, snowstorms would last for days. When I was a kid, I walked to school uphill both ways. Actually, that is impossible. But that's what happens when people get nostalgic. Don't you miss the good old days when people didn't lie, didn't cheat, didn't steal, didn't round up on their taxes, didn't gossip? You know that point in time when all people were equal? When everyone treated everyone with kindness and care and compassion and tenderness? That time when people didn't care about status. That time when people were happy when other people were happy. That time when the people who had more than enough were more than enough happy to give to those who don't have enough without prompting. Oh, those good old days. The point, and do I have your attention? The good old days we talk about, they were more simple, as in less technology and travel was different and medicine was limited in scope, yet how people treated one another, how people loved one another has never really been very good yet. And I talk a lot, but I never waste words. Did you notice that I said the word yet twice so everyone would hear it at least once? Because we can get there. I don't care the vibes that politicians give off. I don't care what color state talks, but we can get there. It is, after all, I think, a matter of choice, whether or not we get there anytime. In the meantime, however, this is what this theologian sees when I look at the first 4 chapters of the Bible in Genesis. It is the first book, in case it's been a while since confirmation. Here's how it all starts. In a book that is over 1,200 pages long, after God has created a perfect world in 6 days, God decides to create some people. It's lonely after all, and so I'll create Adam and Eve. Have a great time in the perfect world, and you can do anything you want, just don't touch that one tree, that one right over there, the one that looks so awesome. Enter stage left, the devil, and just so you know, the devil did not really tempt Adam and Eve with an apple. You see, apples are not that good. I don't like apples. In the words of the great prophet Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, put some caramel on that and get back to me. Without caramel, not going to have it. It wasn't about the apple, it was about greed. It was about power. It was about wanting to be like God. You see, this is what the devil said to Adam and Eve. For God knows that when you eat of it, you will be able to see clearly and you will be like God. So sadly, from the very beginning, we missed the forest for the trees, for instead of trying to be like God, we should remember that intrinsically we just need God. After that comes the tragic tale of 2 brothers, and we're not even on page 15 yet. Now, I'd love to give you every single sort of detail if I had the time to cover it. You see, if I go over my allotted time, Mr. Tim Graff, who's sitting over there in the front over there, just raise your hand so everyone knows the culprit. There he is right there. The guy with the golden voice and the magic fingers, he looks nice. He looks full of understanding, but if I preach too long, he's going to play me off like they do in those award shows. So because of Tim, all I can say is the very first murder happened with only 2 kids in the entire world. They didn't even have to share a bedroom. but one killed the other. You picking up what I'm laying down? 2 events, 0 for 2. Not trying to be negative, not trying to be pessimistic, not trying to be maudlin, not trying to be morose. Rather, maybe our natural, organic, intrinsic, instinctive, uninhibited tendency is this. We are kind of good at loving the people we want to love. But sometimes we stink at that. And loving those who are not like us, or those persons we don't like, but because we're in church, we won't say we don't like people, we will say we don't fully appreciate them. We're going to need a whole lot of help. To that end, and to put Mr. Graff to the test, I have 4 points. Buddy. More, please, love. Point number 1, everyone is a child of God. I'm 100% Norwegian. I'll keep it simple for those who are. Everyone is a child of God. Everyone you meet in the world is a child of God. Even the people you don't fully appreciate, even the people you can't stand, even in your own family, even people you don't know, but you don't appreciate them, God loves that person as much as God loves you. Deal with it. Because sometimes I don't think we understand that everyone is a child of God. You feel me? Because I go to church, or I'm very charitable, or at least I don't commit that sin. At least, I've been doing this for 30 years. I know people like the back of my hand. Why do we say that? Do you understand the back of your hand? Everybody else's sin is more salacious than my own. And you and I could write a list of the villains we have, but everyone is a child of God. That's where we begin. Everyone is loved as much by God as you are by God. And so when I say, I don't know if I want to treat you with care and love, I have to remember that they belong to God just as much as I do. And that is a good place to begin, which is why it's number 1. And I'll say it yet again, everyone is a child of God. Everyone. Point number 2, just to be clear, Jesus asks us to do 2 things. Here's number 1, we are to love our enemies. And that just really is hard. Anybody have enemies here? Yeah, thank you, little buddy. How could you have an enemy? I mean, well, you probably do. Because you raised your hand. I used to have fewer enemies before I became a senior pastor.
Me too.
I used to have fewer enemies before I'm 57. And stand for some things I believe, and sometimes I make mistakes. But I'm called to love my enemies, and so are you. This is tough love. We're asked to be different. We're not asked to be better, but we're asked to be different. Because it's easy when somebody comes at us for us to go back to them. If it's physical, that's one thing. I was a wrestler. Let's go. But if it's verbal, I was born for that. But 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so we are called to love our enemies. We are also to be invitational and gracious and kind to people who have no way to pay us back. And you know what? People who live where we are, where people who've gotten to where we've gotten, is that how we play that game? It's amazing when people will introduce themselves as a doctor or a lawyer or a surgeon or a pilot, or you list the other thing, all of a sudden you get treated differently. I try not to say I'm a pastor because people get weird. People either tell me all their sins or they just run away. But I've noticed that when I do say what I do, you know what people also do? They ask me what particular thing I do. And then when I say what I do, I'm senior pastor, and they'll say, in this community, I'm senior pastor at St. Andrew Lutheran Church. I get treated differently. Sometimes to the good, sometimes to the bad. But we're pretty good at adding grease to the slide. You see, Jesus said, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Is this a hyperbole? No. Is it a challenge? Yes. Not only love, but love deeply. And love those who can't love you back. Point number 3, by the way, we promised, and a promise is a promise. We make a promise in holy baptism. We care for others in the world God made and work for justice and peace. For these little jiggers, you did it on their behalf. But a promise was made, and a promise is a promise. Also, we reaffirm that promise in confirmation to serve all people, following the example of Jesus. You promised. And someone promised on your behalf. And you know what? I have to tell you that after doing this for so long, because I have made a promise when I was ordained, I don't know if we make a Hippocratic oath, it's kind of reserved for people who are in medicine, but they tell us when we're ordained that we're supposed to love all people. And you know what? With now 6 pastors in this place, it's kind of convenient for you that if you don't fully appreciate me, you have 5 other choices. But also, if I don't fully appreciate you, as senior pastor, I can say, we have 5 other choices for you. My father was always a solo pastor. And everyone, just listen carefully. The deal when you're a solo pastor, there are parishioners who say very hurtful things about you and to you. And sometimes we might deserve it, but a lot of times we don't. And I saw as a child, I heard things, what people said, but then when their life fell apart, they would call my daddy, and my daddy had to go and attend to them and love them. And so this sarcastic, little rebellious little boy saw modeled that we are called to love all people, even when people are not loving to us. And you know what? It works. It works when you realize you've made a promise as a teacher to teach every child. For a nurse or a doctor, and someone comes in and has committed a crime, or maybe they've been the one who was the active shooter, and they're lying on that gurney, and that man or that woman has to attend to that patient as if that's their child, because everyone is a child of God. That's what I'm talking about. That's what Jesus is talking about. That when someone assails you, when someone talks against you, when someone writes a bad tweet about you as a teacher or as a superintendent, I'm just saying that maybe this happens in this day and age. That when they knock on the door and they need help, you and I channel our inner Jesus and say, oh, I'm called to love you. And you know what? In my 30 years, I've had some wonderful moments where you realize why Jesus said it, because that person needs love, but I also feel better when I choose love. Point number 4, Tim, I have 5 points embedded in this. How are we doing? How are we doing for time? Good. 5 ways to love someone who's hard to love. This is by Anna Collins. I'm taking some of it. Number one, pray often, ask for help. Pray for that person. It's nearly impossible to hate someone if we're constantly asking God to move in that person's life. I'll go in order. I've told you before that when I was a hockey game last night. A child plays for St. Olaf, and we beat Bethel. Yes. But there were times, especially back when maybe before I grew up, when my kid was playing in high school, I've told you before that there might be some hockey parents or there might be some referees that get under my skin, and being a little bit competitive, I would have to say the phrase, "Help me, Jesus." Because there might theoretically be some hockey parents on the other side that say things, and then I just have to remember that I'm senior pastor of St. Andrew Lutheran Church, and I gotta be a good boy. And I'm also with my dear wife, who makes me better, and my kids, and you know what I'm saying. You can borrow the "Help me, Jesus." I didn't need it last night because we beat them soundly 5-2. And they sat far away. But pray often that if someone is starting to irritate you, say, "Help me, Jesus. Help me be what you've called me to be." But also, if you have someone who's irritating, someone who's really hard, pray for that person. This is really profound, and Anna is great. If you are praying for someone who's difficult for you, the next time you see them, it's really hard for you to tell them exactly what you think of them when you've been praying for them. Feel me? That'd be ironic, wouldn't it? To pray for someone, and the next time you see them, you tongue lash them? Humble yourself. Here's a news flash. We can be hard to love too. Do you know how difficult it must be to be married to you? When you think about being married to you? We have over 105 employees in this congregation. And at different times, we're all hard to deal with. And if you were to ask the spouse of everyone here and say, "Do you love your spouse?" You'd say, "Yep." Can you tell me, are they difficult? Yep. I can tell you a lot of the ways. Humble yourself. You're no piece of cake either. It's just the people around you probably just overlook the things that are glaringly obvious. What's obvious is that if you don't love somebody else, all you see are the things that irritate you. When you love someone, you overlook those things that are irritating. Learn this story. I was going to be a psychologist, and Dr. Norm Ferguson asked me a question one day, and he said, "So, class, determinism or free will?" And I raised my hand because I'm so smart, and I said, "Free will." And he said, "Wrong." And for 20 minutes, he just beat me down because I would think and think and think and think of ways there was free will, and he would say, "No, no, no. Everything is determined either by nature or nurture. Everything is predetermined in some way. It's causal." And what I'm getting at is that there's always a story when someone in the congregation is a certain way or they recoil at different things, and then you get to know them and you learn their story. There's always an ouchie that goes back. Have you met their mother? Have you met their father? I'm part of my mother, a large part of my mother. I'm also part of my dad. And sometimes when I'm shy, and sometimes I'm introverted, and sometimes when I feel like I'm not good enough, well, that's the other part of me. Where'd you come from? Were you held too much or too little or just right? Most of you weren't held just right. Most of you were held a little bit over here. Learn someone's story. When they have something that is inside of them that they can't shake, if you realize and you talk to them and say, "Oh, I didn't know," and then you see them through that lens. Forgive often. Some people simply need more forgiveness than others. See above. You have some people in your family, maybe you're going to have to invite to Christmas, and you're like, "Why do I have to forgive you so much?" One of the disciples, Peter, came up one day, and Peter, the disciple, was always kind of a show-off, I think, because he always just like, pick me, pick me. So he comes up one day and he says, Jesus, how often should I forgive? And it was a setup because he said, I don't know, maybe 7 times, he said. Well, he knows that the rabbis of that day actually prescribed 3. And so he thought he'd double it and then add 1 for extra credit because he was kind of a suck-up. He just was. Remember this from confirmation? Not 7, but 70 times 7. So then people thought, well, then they took it literally because some people do. You mean 490? No. Actually, this was to say, don't count. Do you want Jesus to count how many times he forgives your trespasses? Then why do we do it with anyone else? Maybe we ought to pray that we should be as forgiving as Jesus is forgiving of us. Number 5, Tim, set healthy boundaries. This is my quote. Loving others doesn't mean that you have to barbecue together. I like it. I like it because it's mine. There's a difference between like and love. And I thought I wouldn't have time to go through all that. So suffice to say is that you don't fully appreciate somebody, but love is deeper, love is wider. But it doesn't mean I have to hang out with you. If I have the free time and I don't have much of it, I want to spend time with people who put air in my tires. At the same time, I want to make sure I don't run toward that fire. In other words, if there are people who bring out the worst in me or it is combustive, then I will keep it to a minimum. So I don't want you to think that I actually have to become a doormat. That's not what I'm saying. But it's amazing when you do say, help me, Jesus. Not forgiving somebody is like eating rat poison and waiting for the rat to die, says Anne Lamott. Sometimes when you just bury the hatchet and you meet somebody that you've had problems with and you look at them and say, nice to see you, and at least you don't say what's on your heart, you walk away better. One of my first mentors, the Reverend Don Sponheim, once told me, when you're in a room with someone who's being small, you know what being small is?
I am.
Make sure that when you leave the room, there's still only one person being small. That's setting a healthy boundary also by not being taken away with the tide. So hopefully good storytellers, and I hope maybe sometimes I qualify, you should at the end go back to the beginning and then it just becomes circular. And so I thought of a song. Not a really hip song, and you're going to think, well, that's not very current, but that's okay. I'm kind of old myself. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing there's just too little of. And I thought to myself, because I'm always a contrarian, and I thought to myself, well, how simplistic is that? We don't need just love. What about the people who are starving to death? Well, actually, if we love them, we would share with them our food. There's a housing crisis. Same thing. Every ism you can tell me, love would cover that. Then there's another. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. This song is 1 year newer than moi. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, color, gender, politics, list goes on and on. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Not just for some, but for everyone.
We hope you found this week's message helpful as you think about how you will live out your faith each day. If you would like to support the ministries at St. Andrew Lutheran Church, you can do so by having your credit card information available and then texting a gift to 952-260-9007. Thank you, and God bless.